Okay, welcome back. It's time for Jerry and the Goddesses Part 30. Trigger warnings for this part. Some depictions of ethnic cleansing that gets interrupted before it gets too bad. So, alright, here we go. 253, Gary said. I clicked my scope up to 200 meters and moved the crosshairs a little above the officer's head. Red, I said, using the jargon Gary had taught me. There were people behind the officer, civilians. I kept the crosshairs over his head as he paced back and forth, yelling at the figures kneeling in front of him. Yellow, I added as he moved off to one side of them, but not far enough for a clean shot. He moved back in front of the prisoners. Red, I said again. This fucker's gonna go green in the worst way, I just know it, Gary muttered. I actually had the same idea. I wasn't going to get a clear shot until he stood in front of someone and executed them. It seemed inevitable at this point. Sure enough, he stopped in front of an older man who glared up at him with hatred in his eyes. The old man spat something out and the officer put his handgun to the man's forehead and pulled the trigger. Green, I said through gritted teeth and squeezed the trigger. The officer's head exploded into a pink mist and the remaining soldiers gaped for a second. I shifted my aim to the one standing furthest from the captives and fired again. Another pink mist erupted. This time the soldier got the hint and scattered. The captives didn't need any more encouragement. They scattered too, most of them running out of the iron gates of the walled courtyard they occupied. I caught a glimpse of a muzzle flash from one of the windows, and a woman who was attempting to herd two children, all with their hands tied behind their backs, tripped and stumbled. I put my crosshairs near the top of the window and squeezed the trigger until the magazine went dry. Gary handed me another, which I reloaded as quickly as possible. This was a kind of fighting I could handle. The enemy didn't know where we were, and we weren't even shooting in our general direction. But the firing at civilians was making me angry. Gary wasn't much happier about it, judging from his tone. Come on, he said. Let's get closer. Gulp. They would be able to shoot back if we got too close, but Gary knew what he was doing better than I did. And there were other courtyards with other groups of civilians. I had expected an attempt at ethnic cleansing in Ethiopia, and according to the news, hadn't actually been disappointed, though I hadn't witnessed it firsthand. But Sarissa and Inanna had been clear that the fighting here was more conventional. Apparently, conventional simply referred to the fact that they were using tanks and jets and artillery in addition to all the soldiers. But ethnic cleansing was still, unfortunately, the order of the day. It was the Azerbaijan military attempting to wipe out the Armenian majority in this region this time. We moved down the stairs carefully, my long rifle slung over my shoulders while I carried my MP5 SD in my hands. Gary had his super stubby assault rifle with a long suppressor bringing the length back up to something resembling normal, and he carefully and quickly checked every corner before we went around it. Emerging from the rear door, we moved down an alleyway perpendicular to the direction we wanted to go for a few blocks before we turned. We hadn't gone more than a quarter of the way forward when a group of soldiers rounded the building ahead of us and stopped, surprised at our appearance. Gary reacted instantly, snapping his rifle up and shooting the lead soldier twice in the chest. I reacted next, spraying the whole group with my submachine gun. I gave them a nice, long hose down, courtesy of Inanna's magic magazine, which never ran dry. I had asked her about doing something similar for Gary, but she had told me that her ability to do that for me was contingent upon our physical relationship. I knew she was with us, however, because two of the soldiers who survived the spray of 9mm bullets managed to get their guns pointed at us, and then both experienced misfires that made the actions of their rifles explode. Gary cut them down quickly, and the last survivor ran off, leaving a blood trail behind him. Come on, kid, before more of them fuckers show up, Gary said, and we took off again. A few more blocks passed beneath our feet, and we found another 4-story building, so we decided we were close enough. We went in, carefully clearing each room as we made our way up the stairs to the top floor. This one had a roof access, so we took it. Up on the roof, we had an expansive view of the area we needed to search for the second key in. We grabbed some empty cardboard boxes that were stacked up beside the door and took them apart. then draped them over ourselves and crawled slowly to the edge. I could see 8 groups of soldiers, one of whom had a couple of large artillery guns set up in their midst. On top of the soldiers, I also saw 2 groups of 3 tanks, and I could hear idling engines in the distance. After watching for a while, Gary eased back down over the lip of the roof. "I ain't got no clue where the key might be," he admitted. "Me neither," I said with a sigh. "I think we'd best just call Anna and let her clear the area. We're too close for sniping. They'll beam in on us right off the bat." I nodded. That worked for me. "And Anna," I said, "we haven't gotten anything so far. I think we're going to need you to get rid of these soldiers before we can take some more time to search." I heard her voice coming as if she was standing right in front of me. "Gotcha. Sarissa and Kathy can handle this area now. I'll be there in just a second." Literally 1 second later, I heard gunfire and shouting. I peeked up over the edge again. 6 groups of soldiers were now running around, finding cover and beginning to move to the west. The group with the artillery guns were loading them up, awaiting coordinates to aim at, and the last group, the one furthest to the west, was laying on the ground in the middle of the street, bleeding out. All of them. Damn. I'd seen Inanna go into warrior mode before, but it never ceased to amaze me. As I watched, I saw her appear, moving down the middle of the widest street, going east to west. The second group to reach her came from directly in front, and she just kind of waved her gun around for a second, fire spitting from the barrel, and that was that. They were all dead.